Hello and welcome to this edition of the Wireless LAN News Desk for June 29th, 2018. My name is Tom Carpenter. I'm the CTO at CWNP. And today we're going to be talking about WPA3, which was announced by the Wi-Fi Alliance on June 25th. And we're going to be talking about another little fun topic just to make a point. And when I say make a point, I guess the acronym for that would be MAP. But you'll see what I mean. So we're going to be talking about WPA3 first of all. I want you to understand from a high level some of the things here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the points that the Wi-Fi Alliance made in their news release this last week on June 25th and kind of give you some commentary to help you understand a little bit about WPA3. So first of all, WPA3 is the moving forward version of WPA. WPA is Wi-Fi protected access, and it's been around since before 2004, actually, when 802.11i was ratified. WPA was released as a stopgap to try and fix the security weaknesses in WEP, or WEP if you prefer. You'll see what that means in a minute. So WPA was released using, technically under the hood, temporal key integrity protocol with RC4 encryption to fix the problems in WEP. And then WPA2 is based on the 802.11i amendment as well, but this time we're implementing CCMP with AES encryption, the advanced encryption standard. So both were defined in the 802.11i standard. The 802.11i standard defined temporal key integrity protocol with RC4. The Wi-Fi Alliance simply called it WPA and named it as a transitional certification. The IEEE standard named Temporal Key Integrity Protocol with RC4 as a transitional security network. So basically it was a network on its way to being secured, right? Better than WEP, not as good as WPA2. So WPA2 uses a stronger security solution, but as we saw last year, there are weaknesses in the four-way handshake. There are susceptibilities to offline dictionary attacks. If somebody can capture enough information from your network, then they can hack a weak pre-shared key and gain access to your network if it's a WPA2 personal network. So those were some of the big issues over the years with those networks. So the Wi-Fi Alliance is trying to fix that. There is no 802.11a, well, there is an II, let's say. There is no 802.11ii that is going to fix security problems. They simply introduced a new security solution called GCMP when around the time 802.11ad came out. It was part of the AD amendment. And that is included still then for all of the 802.11 standard now. As of 802.11 2016, it's even in one consistent document. So they did release that or add that in, but the Wi-Fi Alliance is saying, you know what, let's go beyond the standard and let's add some layers of security that are standard-based. They're not necessarily proprietary technologies. Everybody knows they're open. The algorithms and protocols are open, so therefore they can use them. So what they're looking at using is things like simultaneous authentication of equals to replace pre-shared key, so that you have better security in that area. So it does away with this offline hacking method, being able to go back and gain access to the network. They implement it in two ways, just like they did with WPA and WPA2. There's a WPA3 Personal and a WPA3 Enterprise. Now, WPA3 Personal is the one that's going to implement, of course, simultaneous authentication of equals, or SAE, or maybe you'll pronounce that SAE. We'll talk more about that in a minute. It seems to be a running theme, doesn't it? Of course, pre-shared key is acronymed into PSK, so I guess you could call that PUSK. Well, you'll see. So the point is that WPA3 Personal implements this. It gives you natural password selection, so you can select a password that would be easy to guess, I guess you could say, but it's going to use algorithms to protect that. Easier to use, therefore. And it also uses something called forward secrecy. It's sometimes called PFS, perfect forward secrecy in security. And basically what it means is that every session has its own established keys. So even if you get the key for a session, that doesn't mean you have the key for all of the other sessions. Then we have, of course, WPA3 Enterprise, which gives us authenticated encryption with 256-bit Galois counter mode protocol, GCMP 256. Catch that? GCMP, defined in the standard. Key derivation and confirmation is a 384-bit hashed message. Authentication mode, HMAC, and secure hash algorithm, HMAC SHA 384. Love these pronunciations taking place. We'll see why. The key establishment authentication, it's using elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, ECDH, exchange, and elliptic curve digital signature algorithm, ECDSA. Robust management frame. This is interesting because WPA3 across the board requires that protected management frames be enabled. Okay, so it's no longer an optional thing if it's going to be WPA3 certified. It also disallows legacy security protocols. Now it says it's interoperable with WPA2. So when you put those two statements together and you understand something about 802.11 as a standard, then you'll know what they're saying. So 802.11 has deprecated all security solutions except CCMP AES and GCMP. So other than those, it's all deprecated. So TKIP, Temporal Key Integrity Protocol, WEP, shared key authentication, all that stuff deprecated. Hence their legacy. And therefore, the Wi-Fi Alliance is saying with WPA3, we're going to require that those legacy things, whether they're authentication or encryption algorithm, those legacy protocols are disallowed. They cannot be allowed. Let's just make it simple. The firmware shouldn't support it, right? So that's the key thing to understand that they're trying to do to push forward. This is probably one of the reasons why they decided to make WPA3 an optional thing for devices to be Wi-Fi certified. In other words, if you're going to be 802.11ac certified, or if you're going to be 802.11ax certified, right now, WPA3 is optional. You don't have to support WPA3 on your devices. They say eventually, once there's market acceptance, they will make it a requirement. Well, that's something that is important to come along quickly. So these are just a few highlights of some of the things that are going to be in WPA3. We will be doing a webinar later this year on it, giving you all the technical details to help you understand exactly what's going on with it. Of course, WPA3 will be covered somewhat in our new CWDP and CWAP materials, so watch for that. And when we update CWSP next year, certainly there will be heavy coverage of WPA3 in there. So watch for those materials coming down the road. Now, I have one more thing I want to talk to you about, but first of all, a quick break to remind you to go to conferences.cwnp.com to register for the Wi-Fi Trek Conference in San Diego, which is being held in October this year. That conference is a gathering of Wi-Fi minds and professionals, and we're going to have several keynotes. I'll be doing a keynote one morning, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a fun keynote the first morning to start things off. I'll give you some hints maybe along the road leading up to the conference about what we'll be talking about. And then we have Chuck from Aruba Networks giving us a keynote on Thursday morning, and we'll have another keynote on Friday morning. So we've got a lot of exciting things coming down the line. Conferences.cwnp.com. All right, I'm going to wrap up with a quick minute or so talking about what I'm going to call pronunciation persnicketyness. Pronunciation persnicketyness. I think I just mispronounced pronunciation. I said pronunciation. Here's the thing. We have a ton of acronyms in the WLAN industry. I mean the wireless LAN industry. I mean the WLAN industry. I mean the WLAN industry. I mean the wireless LAN industry. Uh-oh. What just happened there? I showed you there are all kinds of ways that you could pronounce the acronym WLAN. Very few people spell it out because local area network has been around as an acronym since the 80s or earlier, and we've always called it LAN. I have heard a few people call it LAN. But because of that, we often say WLAN or wireless LAN when we pronounce the acronym WLAN. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. We pronounce AP. We don't say app because that might be confused with another app, like a app for a phone, right? So we have reasons that we pronounce things a certain way. I say TKIP when I do Temporal Key Integrity Protocol. Some people say TKIP. I can't even hardly say that because I'm so used to saying TKIP. I say TKIP. I pronounce some acronyms and others I don't. There are acronyms that some people pronounce that I don't. I used to deal a whole lot with Microsoft SQL Server. I call it SQL Server and not SQL Server because pretty much everyone from Microsoft that I heard say it back in that day said SQL Server. But when I talk about the language, SQL, I call it SQL and not SQL, because the language is different than the SQL Server. And so in my mind, I said, okay, the people who created SQL Server can tell me how to pronounce it. But SQL is the language for talking to databases. We'll simplify it and say that. So the thing is, we all have ways that we want to pronounce things. I want to encourage you not to get into pronunciation persnicketyness, which is the point where you feel like you want to be the acronym pronunciation police. Here a while back, we had to decide, are we going to call it MU-MIMO, 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 or multi-user MIMO every time we say it? And is it MIMO or MIMO? You know, I mean, it's multiple input, multiple output. It's not multiple input, multiple output. So the point is, we can argue over how to pronounce these things. And the reality is that phonetics seem to be out the window. Sometimes people just do it the way they want to. Phonetics seem to be out the window. Some people just do it the way they want to. And the reality is that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. As long as you know what you're talking about and as long as I know what you're talking about. And let me make a point of that. The common way that we pronounce wireless LAN is WLAN or wireless LAN. I was talking to a gentleman who kept saying WLAN, WLAN, WLAN. Now that's weird, it's different, but I'm going to tell you, he's massively smarter than me or pretty much anybody else I know in Wi-Fi. And I'm not going to talk about who he is because he might not appreciate me talking about the way he pronounced WLAN. But the guy did not pronounce it the way we're used to hearing it. But he knew more about it than most of the people who want to police him over how he pronounces it. Let me suggest this. Let's focus on mastering Wi-Fi technology rather than being pronunciation persnicketers. Because we don't need CWNPPs out there. That would be a Certified Wireless Network Pronunciation Persnicketer. We don't need that. We need CWNAs, CWSPs, CWAPs, CWDPs, CWNEs. That's what we need out there. And they're people who know the technology. Don't get me wrong. I understand. We need a shared language, but let's not so overemphasize pronunciation that we forget about definition. Well, that's all I have for today's News Desk. Thanks for viewing and bearing with me here at the end for a little longer than a minute diatribe. I hope that you've enjoyed it and gotten some value out of it. Again, watch for that webinar later in the year on WPA3 and go to conferences.cwnp.com to register for the conference. Also, if you haven't already, click below to subscribe and you can click the little bell in order to be notified when we post. Thanks for viewing, and I'll see you next week.